Need to do in tonight's debate to maintain viability as a Democratic presidential candidate. My next guest, Andrew Yang, had plenty of time on the televised debate stage throughout the first stages of the primary battle, and safe to say he has gotten to know most of the candidates pretty well. Andrew Yang left the race after the New Hampshire primary, but to prove there is life after politics, he's joined CNN as a political commentator. We're very happy to have him. I'm happy to discuss tonight's debate with him. Andrew, welcome to CNN. We're very happy that you're joining us. This is obviously the first time that we're going to see Michael Bloomberg on the debate stage. What are your expectations of that?
This is essentially the Bloomberg debate, Anderson. The fact is the other candidates have had 8 debates where they've had their talking points essentially hardwired in. It's almost second nature. Whereas for Mike, this is going to be his first time. He's not accustomed to getting hostile questioning on a regular basis. He's not accustomed to getting his past comments on sex and race dragged. So it's going to be a real test of temperament and even humility for Mike tonight. And the question is whether he can take the slings and arrows that are coming his way in stride.
That's one of the things, that people don't realize is running for president, as you well know, it makes you get better at it as you go. Being in town halls in New Hampshire and Iowa and elsewhere and being on debate stages, and, it teaches you a certain amount of humility, and you're taking questions from all sorts of people and reporters. Mike Bloomberg hasn't done that for a very long time, and he's been in a somewhat rarefied ecosphere of a multi-billionaire.
Yeah,
Do you think he knows what he's getting into?
Well, he has a very, very strong team. And if I'm his team, I've been coaching him to take hostile questioning with ease and coolness and then pivot to talking points about his record and his message. If I were his team, I'd be playing him like that Zen, music before he gets on the debate stage just to try and chill him out. Because the big challenge for him is to
wouldn't go for Metallica or, Nine Inch Nails or something?
No. He has to try and be presidential and keep his cool through everything. For him, the pitfalls are if he expresses irritation or contempt. And the fact is he's going to have a lot of contempt directed at him. He has to react with the opposite.
What does it say to you about the support for Bernie Sanders that Mike Bloomberg, without actually being in the race, although spending a huge amount on television commercials, in 2 new national polls is behind Sanders, is in the number 2 spot? The fact that somebody who hasn't even really been running is supposedly, according to these 2 polls, on the national level, number 2. What does that say about the support for Sanders?
Well, after all of the attacks that are going to be leveled against Mike tonight, the second target is going to be Bernie, because he's the front runner at this point. He's almost certainly going to win Nevada, and the other candidates are going to try and bring down the front runner. I'd expect attacks on Bernie tonight, on his electability, his health, the online followers of his that have some bad tendencies, even his family's financial histories or dealings. Anything is going to be fair game, because many of the other candidates are being told that it is not acceptable to have an okay debate tonight, that they have to draw blood on either Mike or Bernie, or produce something spectacular in terms of a moment. Because the other candidates can see if Bernie wins Nevada, which he's expected to, it's going to be harder and harder for them to make the case.
If this boils down to a race between Bernie Sanders and Michael Bloomberg, it could not be a more stark. It's sort of if you were writing this as a screenplay, the guy who's campaigning
these
against
would be the characters,
the
yes.
impact of the impact of billionaires on our system, and to have a billionaire being the one running against him, dropping huge amounts of money in the race. Do you see Sanders supporters? Bernie Sanders has said, look, he'll support whoever is the Democratic nominee. He said that before Bloomberg was in the race, but subsequently he says he still would support Bloomberg. But clearly that would be a tough pill for him to swallow. And do you think his supporters would come out and vote for Bloomberg?
Well, I think you're right that Bernie and Mike represent in some ways the 2 extremes of the party. And I think it's going to be tough to galvanize Bernie supporters behind Bloomberg and vice versa. Certainly, I'm going to support whoever the nominee is, and I think that both Bernie and Mike have said they do the same. But it's one thing to say you're going to support the nominee, and it's another for your millions of supporters to go out to the polls and fight as hard as they would for you. So I think this is going to be a real issue for the Democratic Party, and I think there's going to be a lot of soul searching in the days ahead, trying to figure out how to bring the party together, regardless of who is the nominee. And of course, you can't rule out the other candidates, but right now, Bernie's the front runner with Bloomberg coming up quickly.
Andrew Yang, it's great to have you with us.